In Berkshire, one incredible canine who has completely changed a family's life is Roots.
I had no idea that our dog Roots could make such a difference to our family's lives.
You're going to need a bath. You are muddy as anything.
Neil and Sarah Downing live in Reading with their 3 children. From the outside, they look like any other family, but everyone in this house lives beneath a constant shadow. 44-year-old Neil was just 2 when he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
It's always part of my life, so I've never known any different, really. So it's there, it's always been there, but it's something you always have to be careful about, always mindful of. You don't ever just do anything spontaneously. You have to plan for it, making sure I know where my blood testing kits are, where my insulin always is, and where blood sugars, more importantly, are. It's something that's there, you plan for it, but it's always there and it always will be.
Neil's condition means his body can't produce insulin, which breaks down sugars in our food. He has to inject the hormone instead and eat just enough food to steady his blood sugar level. It's tricky to get the balance right.
It's incredibly tiring looking after Neil. It's a non-stop, constant job. When his blood sugars do drop, he becomes very argumentative, so it's quite hard to persuade him that he needs to test himself and to take on some sugar.
And if Sarah doesn't notice changes in Neil's behaviour, it could be the difference between her husband living and dying.
On at least 2 occasions I had to call an ambulance for Neil because he was unconscious. I got the glucagon injection, which is the bringing him back to life supposedly, and injected and called an ambulance because he was unconscious.
Because Neil's condition is serious, when the couple married 18 years ago, they worried that any children they had might be diabetic too. They went on to have a healthy son and then a daughter, but when their 3rd child, Jack, was born, their fear became a reality.
It was always on our mind, at the back of our minds, that it might happen to one of them. And when I was pregnant with Jack, I wasn't unduly worried. And it was only when he started to show symptoms. He was drinking a lot, his nappies were very full, which are classic symptoms of diabetes.
Jack was only 20 months old when he was formally diagnosed. Like his father, he had type 1 diabetes.
To have to inject a 1-year-old was probably one of the worst things I've had to do in my life. And to be honest, the first time I did it, I closed my eyes because I couldn't watch his face as he cried.
From the day he was diagnosed, Sarah and Neil have had to watch Jack closely. At any minute, their son's blood sugar could soar or crash, leading to a collapse.
He needs to be watched 24/7. If he's here, then I'm watching him. If he's at school, then his friends and his teachers are looking after him. His blood sugar can drop very quickly.
And now 11, Jack is much more aware of his own limitations.
Sometimes I can't do PE because I'm too low, and sometimes I have to sit on the side and not do the lesson, and sometimes I have to eat more, which when my friends usually aren't allowed to.
For years, Jack's parents managed his condition as best they could, but they were never able to stop worrying about their son's safety.
How have your sugars been today?
It's alright. I was a little low in the morning. I had a bit of sugar, yeah, to get me up.
Because Neil and Jack could both fall into a diabetic coma at any time, Sarah never let them go out together without a chaperone.
Sarah was really starting to struggle having 2 diabetics in the house, that she had to keep an eye on 2 different people, 2 different parts of the house, and it was really putting her at strain, and we needed some help to really have more of a normal life.
The situation was taking its toll on the whole family, but one day something suddenly gave Neil new hope.
Yeah, we read about the Medical Detection Dogs charity in a Sunday magazine, about the good work they were doing training dogs to alert for diabetics, and having 2 diabetics in the household, we thought that would be really great if they could help us, so we contacted the charity.
Dr. Claire Guest has spent the last 12 years researching a dog's sense of smell, which is 100,000 times stronger than a human's. Not only can they smell out diseases like cancer, they can also work with diabetics, sniffing out when their blood sugar has gone too high or low.
We trained the first diabetes detection dog in 2008, and following the training of that dog, We very quickly got a long waiting list, so we now have over 45 dogs out working.
The animals are trained to work with diabetics who aren't able to recognise changes in their own blood sugar levels. They let their owner know if there's a problem, then fetch their testing kit before the situation becomes an emergency.
So Lydia here has a sample of low blood sugar. She's going to take the lid off the pot, and that's going to make the odour available for the dog to find. The dog will then alert Lydia, tell her that he's found the odour, and be rewarded. Takes a bit of time for the odour to come out, so sit in your pocket. So just notice the odour's there. You see him starting to tell Lydia that he's found it. On smelling the odour, he's then gone to fetch the blood testing kit.
Good boy.
But however talented the charity's dogs are, training one for the Downing family in particular would bring a whole new set of issues.
The difficulty or challenge with training a dog for when there are two people with diabetes in the house is, of course, we didn't know how well the dog would be able to distinguish between the odour that was coming from Jack, the little boy, and the odour that was coming from Dad. We've no idea whether we might be able to train a dog for this situation. Sick.
Luckily, the charity had already started work with a very promising new recruit, Roots, a working Cocker Spaniel.
Roots was always a very, very inquisitive little puppy, but he also was a puppy that bonded very, very closely to the person he lived with. So we knew these were the exact characteristics we wanted for a medical assistance dog. A medical assistance dog needs to be around the person, and the typical dog would be the dog that would sort of sit beside you and put their head on your knee, so they notice the odour change.
But how would Roots cope with two diabetic people to look after? He's thought to be the first dog in the world ever taught to do this.
Boy, Richie, is that good boy? You're a good boy, aren't you?
And after 4 months of intensive training, he was ready to be with his family.
As soon as we saw Rooty, we fell in love with him straight away because his charming face, he's got such a lovely face, and his tail just never stops wagging. He's such a lovely personality. He's just become part of the family.
When I first saw him, I was a bit nervous because I'd never had a pet or anything. But quickly I got to know him, I played with him, and I walked him around.
You're such a clever little thing. I know. Yes, I love you too.
Now he's settled in, how has Roots been able to live up to the challenge?
When Roots detects a low blood sugar level occurring, he'll get very, very intense. He'll start pouring at us, and he'll do what he's trained. He'll put his nose into our hand, lick, until he gets a reaction from us, because we're probably confused at that point as well. Oh, here's an alert. That's an alert. This is an alert.
Go and get it.
Then he'll go and get our testing kits, bring them back to us, and then make sure that we test to check our blood sugar levels. That's why he was staring at you when he couldn't get...
On this occasion, Roots gets it right. Jack's blood sugar is low.
Roots will give us normally about 20 minutes warning of an impending low blood sugar attack, and he's correct about 70% of the time. So he's a very, very clever dog.
Good boy.
Boy, Richie, is that good boy? You're a good boy.
A huge hit with the family. Father and son have settled into a routine with Roots that works for everyone. He spends half his time at home with Jack, and the other half helping project manager Neil at work.
So yeah, I'll bring Roots into work a couple of times a week when it's busy. He's there, he'll just sit under my desk for most of the day, and he'll jump up and give me the alerts should I need it.
Having Roots has been fantastic. He's taken the pressure off of me. It means Neil and Jack can go out together, have a boys' outing, which I would never let them do before because I wouldn't trust them out on their own.
Me and my dad can go out with Rooty, and we know that we can be safe, rather than just us two relying on each other.
Having him keeping an eye on everybody is great. I couldn't imagine life without him now.
He's the world, and I wouldn't know what to do without him. Just learn so much that wouldn't know what to do without him.